Welcome, everyone. We're just letting everyone in here. Welcome to Braver Angels, We the People's Forum. So we're seeing all of your friendly faces come up here. So we're just going to say hello to a couple of you and ask you where you're from. Let's see. Paul Hollister, where are you joining from, Paul? Go ahead and unmute yourself when we invite you.
Lebanon, New Hampshire.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, David, I see one of the friends that I told you about that was going to be here tonight.
Well,
Hi,
look
Sandy.
at that.
Hi, Sandy. Tell us where you're calling from tonight.
Hello there. I am at the bend of the Columbia River, the Tri-Cities area of Washington State, Richland.
Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Rita.
I bet it's beautiful out there. Welcome. And I see Michael Maxenti. Michael, welcome. Where are you calling from? Oh, go ahead and unmute yourself, Michael.
Calling from Irvine, California.
Excellent. Welcome.
I see we've got Alan Falk with us. Alan, where are you calling in from? Oh, could you unmute yourself?
It looks like he's calling in from the clouds, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, that was a nice day here a long time ago. Raleigh, North Carolina, where we've had a couple inches of rain over the last few weeks.
Oh, wow. Well, nice to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Was there somebody here from Norway?
I saw that. If you're from Norway, please introduce yourself. Welcome. Okay, we did see somebody say they're from Norway in the waiting room. So
yeah,
that's say hello.
Oh, that's me.
Oh, hi. Hey, welcome.
My sound wasn't on, so I didn't hear you.
Excellent. Well, very glad that you're here. How did you hear about tonight's event?
Well, I try to follow the American political scene as much as possible, just to be able to vote decently. But the things that I can join where I can listen to Andrew Yang is one of my favorites.
Oh, that's
Excellent.
so kind and
very
sweet.
glad that
Thank
you're
you.
here.
Wow, I appreciate that. Again, I mean, you know, I again should tell my wife.
So I see that we've got Elizabeth Yasinoff. Are you there, Elizabeth? And where are you calling from?
Yes, hello, Granville, Ohio, right outside Columbus.
Oh, okay. Nice to have you with us tonight.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Elizabeth, I'm from South Lebanon, Ohio, so not too terribly far from where you are.
Oh, awesome. Good to have another Ohioan.
Always, always. And I see there's Allison Schneider there. Allison, where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. OHI.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Your
Now,
list.
the invasion of the Ohioans.
Yeah. Here we come, baby.
Jeff Nichols from Cleveland, Ohio.
Whoa, I like this trend. I like, good move, Jeff.
You're the heart of it all.
And I'm in the middle of everybody, and I'm Colette Harrison in Dayton, Ohio.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, this is officially a trend.
I'm in Cleveland.
I'm from West Virginia, and I'm not an Ohioan by any means, but no offense to the gentleman from Cleveland. I am a Who Dey. I am a Bengals fan. So
It is a good time to be a Bengals fan, isn't it?
Not really.
After the Rams, may I remind you, did our job.
Ah, spoken like somebody from Irvine, California.
Hi, David. Hi, Rita.
Hi. Oh, hi, Corey. Corey just checked in, David. Good to have you. Where are you calling from, Corey Zach?
I mean, you know where I'm calling from, but I'm from Middletown, Ohio. So somebody just said they're from Dayton. I'm like really close to them.
Well, Corey is actually a member of our team here. That's why we kind of knew her immediately. So good to have you here with us, Corey. Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah,
Jeff, you've already said where you're from, I believe. Okay. How about, let's see, Ann Dobbins. Is that correct? Have you?
Yes, I'm in Cleveland.
Okay, now I'm going to the 3 screens over. because
Okay, so I do want to say that it is legal for non-Ohioans to be at We the People's Forum. So just wanted to clarify that for everybody.
oh, I want real quickly, I want Stephen, you were on my first screen and then you kind of got knocked over to my second screen. So where are you calling from?
Campbell,
I
California.
am.
Oh, we've got more than one Stephen.
I don't know.
Okay, the Stephen with the ball cap on, where are you calling from?
All right. I am not calling from Ohio. I'm calling from Wheaton, Illinois.
Woo, okay.
It's still the Midwest, though. I'm just saying.
Pretty
Yeah,
close.
didn't get too far. Didn't get too far.
Well, how about the other Stephen? I'm sorry that I cut you off, but there's another Stephen that I believe. Where are you from, other Stephen? Maybe not.
So this is Steve Houseworth, no N at the end. I'm from rural central Illinois, about 2.5 hours south of Wheaton, 2 miles from the nearest town of 400 people.
Oh, wow. Wonderful to have you with us.
And we will get started in just a minute, everyone. Right now, we're just saying hello in the chat, or Reed and I are calling out to some people and people from all over the country, and including Norway, all over the world.
Hey.
Joseph Stein, where are you calling from?
Live on the West Coast, northern San Diego County, the city of Carlsbad.
Oh,
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let's see.
That's basically a foreign country, isn't it, Sandy?
That was for Richard Aberdeen, who I think you're originally from California, but you're now in Tennessee.
I see Laura Lee Thatcher. Where are you calling from, Laura Lee?
Well, I'm calling from Chatsworth, California, which is in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles.
Great. Good to have you.
Good to be here.
We are going to go ahead and get started, everyone. So our Zoom pros are gonna mute everyone at this point, and we're gonna close the chat so that we can focus on hearing from our speakers. But welcome.
David, you're on mute.
Now unmute yourself.
There we go. I got to unmute myself. Follow my own directions, right? So my name is David Lapp. I live in South Lebanon, Ohio. I am a co-founder of Braver Angels and director of We the People's Project. This is We the People's Forum, a Braver Angels event where everyday Americans get time at the podium. Our thing here is that we're a place where people from all races, classes, places, and politics talk about the issues of the day from the perspective of everyday Americans. So, and to learn more about We the People's Project, you can visit braverangels.org/WPP. Our forum tonight is on, is it time for a third party? And the way that we decide our topics for these forums is that our We the People's Project leadership team, which is about 12 of us, we get together once a month and say, well, what do we want to talk about next month? And this is what we came up with. So, and our forum tonight has 3 parts. In the first part, we're going to talk with our 3 first speakers, a coal worker who ran as a Republican in the West Virginia, a longtime union organizer, and a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate whom you may have heard of, who has since started his own third party. So in the second part, we're going to expand the conversation to include everyone else. And so we'll have time for questions and experiences. We want to hear from you, your questions for the speakers, as well as your own experiences about this issue of, is it time for a third party? So, our speakers are the following. Andrew Yang is the founder of the Forward Party and was a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate and a 2021 candidate for mayor of New York City. Bo Copley was an unemployed coal worker from West Virginia when his exchange with then candidate Hillary Clinton went viral in 2016. He then ran and lost an outsider campaign for the Republican nomination for US Senate in the 2018 primary election, a campaign that was documented in the film The Campaign of Minor Bo. And finally, Jerry Silberman worked for years as a factory worker and is now semi-retired as a labor organizer in healthcare, and he is a registered independent. So speakers, welcome to We the People's Forum. We're thrilled that you're here. So again, wait to raise your hands until we get to the questions time. And I'll tell you when the time for questions will be. Until then, we're just going to hear from our speakers. So now the challenge that we're looking at here is that a majority of American voters believe that the two main political parties are doing a poor job of representing the American people. So there was a 2021 Gallup poll that found that a record number of Americans, 61%, said that the parties do such a poor job representing the American people that a third party is needed. And this included 63% of Republicans, 70% of independents, and 46% of Democrats. So my question for you, starting with you, Bo, you ran as a Republican. From your perspective, is the two-party system basically working well for everyday Americans, or is it time for a third party? And give us a sense of what life experiences have shaped your perspective on this as well.
I just want to say again, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. You know, I live in a very rural area. We're a very conservative state. And the county that I live in is very conservative as well. When I registered as a Republican in high school, I had someone tell me, you know, you'll never get to vote in an election because everyone in this county runs as a Democrat, and that it was really a waste of my time. But honestly, there wasn't a lot in the Democratic national platform that associated with who I was as a person. So I registered as a Republican. I've noticed a lot of people in my area now, they register as independents because in West Virginia, you can ask for a ballot in the primary. You can either vote as an independent or you can select a Republican ballot or a Democrat ballot. And a lot of people register as independents so that because they feel like they have a conservative voice, but that exactly what I was told when I registered was they wouldn't have an opportunity otherwise. So what they typically do is they will register as independents and they will pull the ballot for the Democrat side of things so that they feel like they have a voice in a primary, and then they vote for who they want in the overall. I honestly don't know so much that a third party suits me so much. I shout out to Mr. Yang for what he's doing and the momentum he's trying to get with a third party. But for me, I don't know if we had a third party, if it would fit who I am exactly. You know, if I were to join the Forward Party, I don't know that Mr. Yang's ideas and mine are quite the same. So it would.
We'd love to have you, Bo, but continue.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But honestly, you know, it's more the people I think that we have in these positions that have failed us more than the parties themselves. You know, I had a lot of people tell me when I ran, you should start somewhere lower and work your way up. And the problem that I have with that is the majority of the people that wanted me and really liked who I was and what I stood for, they felt like they had a disconnect from politicians because they've made a lifetime out of what they're doing and they've been there for so long. And I said, so basically you're telling me I should start lower, work my way up and become the very person that you don't want representing you. And I just felt like, you know, the majority of the people that we had to choose from were the type of people that didn't really understand who I was, rural working class, and go out every day and live check to check to put food on my table. And a lot of the people who are in Congress, a lot of people who are in our political system are not those kind of people. That's basically why I ran, was because the majority of the people in this state live check to check or something similar to that. And you know, not too many politicians, well, successful politicians know what it's like to be on an unemployment line. And since I was going through that when I garnered the attention that I did, I know a lot of people in my state had done that as well. So I was just hoping to try to represent people the same way that I felt like I needed represented.
So Bo, you basically view yourself as a Republican, and that's kind of the party that you'd prefer to work from.
At the moment, yes. I'll definitely be looking into the Forward Party, Mr. Yang. For now, yes. As a conservative Christian, that party most closely aligns with who I am, and there are things in the party that in general, when we have things that go on in the Senate or in the House of Representatives, I'll pay attention to how people vote on certain matters, and I'll say, well, I don't think I would have handled that way, but as a Republican, yes, I do identify as one, but I also, every decision that's brought before me, I have to weigh it out how it fits me as a person.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Well, and I do want Andrew to have a chance to say why he thinks that you should be a part of the Forward Party. But let me go first to Jerry Silberman. Jerry, you're a longtime union organizer, and of course, unions have been long associated with Democrats. So tell us from your perspective about whether our two-party system is basically working well for everyday Americans, or is it time for a third party? Let's see. Go ahead, Jerry. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Let's see. Where's Jerry? Where's Jerry?
Yeah.
There you go.
I basically don't think we have a two-party system. I think we have a one-party system because we have a very small ruling class composed of ultra-rich individuals. They have one agenda: to accumulate wealth. They dominate the Republican and the Democratic parties. They pay for their election campaigns, and look at all the politicians from both parties who have gotten fancy jobs after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay. So they don't care as long as no party interferes with them making money and no party calls attention to their existence. They're fine with both of them. They're bipartisan. The issues that dominate our culture wars and keep us divided are of no importance to them. Guns, they'll always have a hired professional to protect them. Abortions, if they decide to get one, let's face it, they'll get it. Their kids don't go to public schools. Healthcare is a trivial expense for them. They don't care if we use coal, oil, or solar energy as long as they make a profit. They don't care who wins the election because the fix is in. As we feud and worry, they keep profiting. Wars are opportunities for profit from their point of view. Their children don't serve in the military. The war in Ukraine has been a great boon to the ruling class. The bulk of the $60 billion unanimously voted by Congress so far to Ukraine has gone to a handful of companies that produce armaments. These companies, big political donors to both parties, had a bit of a slump after Afghanistan, but we're spending more money now than we spent on Afghanistan. Winning or losing isn't important. It's the profits to be made along the way. It doesn't matter who controls Congress or the White House. The factory I worked in at a good union job for 10 years was one of hundreds that closed due to Reaganomics. Hillary Clinton in 1992 campaigned to striking healthcare workers. She came to the picket line, promised she would fix healthcare. They fixed it. Insurance company profits skyrocketed, costs increased, and more people couldn't afford insurance. In 2008, Obama bailed out the banks by printing money for them after their greed and false lending practices destroyed millions of families who were blamed for the problem. When the government provides economic relief to protect the economy, where does it really go? Here's the latest example. During the COVID crisis, the big winner was Wall Street. The CARES Act and other relief, both Trump and Biden, printed 4.7 million new dollars. Virtually all of it now shows up in the personal wealth of the richest people in this country. America has 725 billionaires. Their collective wealth increased from 2.9 trillion to 4.6 trillion in the 2 years ending May 2022, more than a 50% increase. How many working Americans, blue or red, saw a 50% raise in those 2 years? How many lost ground? No, it doesn't trickle down. The rising tide drowns the small boats that are tied up to the dock. And nobody honestly earns $1 billion in a lifetime by the labor of their hands or their brains. Part of the job of the two ruling class parties is to stop or absorb third-party challenges. They've had great success with that. Republicans incorporate challenges from the right, Democrats absorb challenges from the left. Over the years, they've been very successful. We need a new party, a genuine second party that is not afraid to pull the curtain back, speak the truth about the elite whose wealth, with Democrats and Republicans as willing partners, allows them to nullify our Constitution when it pleases them. Many Americans, red, blue, or otherwise, have a gut level distrust of this elite, but we haven't been able to put our finger on what to do about it because of all the distracting issues and noise in our political system and our media. The starting point for a new party to have real potential is that we have to shut out the wealthy elite, reject all their dog and pony shows which fill the media to divide us, realize we don't need them, that their power and manipulative tools on social media are illegitimate. We need a new party that invites all the rest of us to reestablish a real democracy. We're in the same boat. It's time we started rowing in the same direction. There are no easy fixes.
All right, I see Andrew cheering. Andrew is about to ask you to become a speechwriter, I think.
Yes, Jerry, I love you. And your message is spot on. There is one party.
Andrew, go ahead and you respond. And also, I'm interested in, obviously give us a sense of why you're making the shift from Democratic Party to your own party. And also, I'd like to hear you make the case to Bo and to conservatives like Bo about why people like him should unite in the third party with liberals and others.
Of course, David, thank you for having me. Thank you to Braver Angels. You're an incredible organization. I love the spirit behind it. I love the patriotism. I love the dedication and the optimism that shows. I've met, as you can imagine, having run for president, tens of thousands of Americans in rural Iowa, Ohio, big cities, and Americans are good when you sit us down. And when we talk to each other, we agree on most things. So why are we all so polarized and pissed off and everything else? It's because we're being played. We're being played by this two-party system that Jerry was describing that is just trying to pit us against each other and distract us while they loot us, while they loot our children's future, while they run our country into the ground. So the case I'd make to Bo is that, Bo, first, the Forward Party is filled with conservative Christians, as well as other Americans of other backgrounds who just agree that stuff's not working and we need to come together and fix it. And one of the most fundamental principles of the Forward Party, which I know infuses Braver Angels, is that we do not need to agree on everything to make common cause to actually solve problems that we can agree on. That's really the setup, is that the two-party system tries to say, hey, Bo and I don't agree on, let's say, guns or something else. And so we can't be part of the same camp. And the Forward Party saying, no, we can agree that there are fundamental problems that we need to make progress on, even if we aren't on the same page on this one issue, which is, by the way, where most Americans are. Most Americans will agree to disagree with their friends, their neighbors, their colleagues. You know what I mean? You don't agree with people around you on everything. You don't expect to. The only place where they say you should expect to is in politics, because they know that'll keep us in these separate camps where they can give us different media, different social media, different incentives. It's all, and so this is what I figured out after I ran for president. I came off the trail, and I want to talk a little bit about me and what drives me. I'm not someone, believe it or not, for a presidential candidate, I'm not someone who really cares about holding office. I decided to run for president because I saw just how diseased our country was becoming economically, that we'd blasted away 4 million manufacturing jobs, primarily in the Midwest and the South. And because my friends in technology tell me that we're going to do the same thing to millions of retail workers, call center workers, fast food workers, eventually truck drivers, that's what got me to run, to say, look, we're in the third inning of an economic transformation that's going to push millions of Americans to the side, and we need to do something about it. After I came off the trail, I tried to figure out why I still felt so pessimistic about our country's future. And if you're all here, you're at least thinking about a third party. 62%, I want to reiterate that, 62% of Americans think that we need a third party. I mean, that should tell you all you need to know about how the two parties are doing. You know what I mean? If you look up and say, literally, if you were an entrepreneur as I am, and you came to a marketplace and there were two providers and 62% of people wanted an alternative, what would you do? You would start a third provider immediately. Probably not just a third, you'd probably start a fourth or a fifth. So you have to ask, why the heck do we only have two? It's not because that's what Americans want. It's because the two parties, to Jerry's point, can only agree on a couple of things, that there should be no competition with the two parties, and that the moneyed interest should be allowed to continue profiting to the moon regardless of which party's in power. It's all like a giant theater production at this point. And the media companies are front and center in trying to pit us against each other. You turn on Fox and you think that, you know, the Democrats are the worst. You turn on MSNBC, you think that the Republicans are the worst, just so that they can keep on making their money and pitting us against each other. So we need a third party. 62% of Americans believe so. Many of you are here today or tonight because you think that we need one. So let's build it. And that's like the simple approach I have to trying to solve this problem. Running for president, none of you had heard of me prior to 2018, 2019. How did the unknown magical Asian man make 7 debate stages and outlast, you know, our current vice president and a bunch of others? It's because I was making a genuine, honest case, and hundreds of thousands, even millions of Americans said, hey, like that guy's talking sense. It's the same thing with starting a third party. I started the Forward Party in October of last year. We're going to be the third biggest party in the country by resources by the end of July, 10 months in, because there's such a hunger, because thousands and thousands of Americans are raising their hands and saying, yes, I don't need to agree with Yang on everything, but I agree with Yang that the system is broken and we need to change it. So would love to have anyone here who that resonates. Just check out the Forward Party. And the great thing is you don't need to agree on everything. Like the main thing you have to agree on is that, to Jerry's point, and I think to Bo's subtext, this system is broken and we need a new party to help change it.
So I want to go to you, Bo, and get your immediate response to what Andrew just said.
Well, I'm sold. I mean, it's
yes,
truly.
Sold. Talking about, Bo. I'm going to send you my cell phone number.
Honestly, though, I mean, you know, both Jerry and Andrew make a great case for what they're saying. You know, it is kind of like the shadow puppets. They run everything, but they do it together. And like he said, we don't have to agree on everything. You could put 10 Republicans in a room, and I can promise you bring up certain issues, not all 10 of us are going to agree. And it's the same thing. The majority of the situations we face, we're going to agree on. There's going to be a handful of things. And honestly, if you have that diversity inside your own group that doesn't agree on something, what better way to work something out before you go out forward in a national spotlight? West Virginia has 2 senators. We have a Republican and a Democrat, and they get along very well, yet they don't agree on most of the issues you see in debate in Congress. And I've wondered to myself, why can't they just sit down together and say, listen, if we really wanted to get something done, we could work on something together, Republican and Democrat, and figure out ironclad ways to work it out, but they don't want us to.
So heads up to all of the participants on this. We just received word right before we got started here that Andrew has to leave here at
another 20 minutes, David.
About 20 minutes. So we are going to go to questions right now, specifically for Andrew. So if you have a question,
the chat window as well, I want to send Bo my cell phone.
Yeah, we'll get you connected. Don't worry about that, Andrew. We'll get you connected.
All right, good.
But yeah, questions specifically for Andrew right now, and then later on we'll have a chance for people to ask questions of Bo and Jerry, and also to share your own experiences of this issue. So Donna, go ahead and say where you're from and what's your question for Andrew. And please, questioners, take up to no longer than 1 minute for your question. And so we can get a lot of questions in there. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you so much. I'm from Maryland. And I have a question about the effect of creating another political party on polarization and willingness to compromise. When I was advocating with the League of Women Voters, we were told, we went to Congress and we were told that if we want to get our issues passed, we'd need to help them get more of their party elected. And it's really discouraging because even today, that was 3 years ago, and today people still, you know, I won't get into it, but you know that nothing's being done because they're more interested in accumulating power than getting something done. So I want to ask you, when establishing another political party, regardless of how well intentioned you may be and how can you prevent it from eventually falling into the same pitfalls as the other political parties, and in order to achieve your goals, start to prioritize power and strength over finding common ground and accomplishments and working with people.
Well, thank you for the important question, Donna. I'm going to say to you something a little bit darker. So the first thing is they say, hey, you need to provide us votes and money so that we can win offices and then we can do what you want to do. But here's the darker part, is that it actually pays off more for them to have an issue that's still unresolved and making people mad than actually solving it. And that's not just me talking. A US senator said that to my face. And if you think about it, it's like, hey, I can make you send me money and energy and go canvas if you still want your thing. But if I give you your thing, then it all goes away. So maybe I'm never going to give you your thing.
Exactly.
And the reason why the Forward Party is fundamentally different is, number one, we're truly just a grassroots group of Americans trying to solve this problem. And so we don't have any, one pulling the strings. But if you look at what we're trying to do, we're trying to make it so that it's not a two-party system or a three-party system. We're trying to make it so that new parties can emerge and arise within our existing political system in order to make a positive case for women, as you're presenting, or for Bo's group, rural coal miners or whomever. Because one of the big insights I had is that the two-party system is not actually designed to deliver for any of those groups. And so in a healthy environment, you would have a new party coming up and then saying like, hey, like this is our agenda. The reason why you can't have that right now is because the two-party system has divided the country up like a turkey and said, hey, like this part's Republican, this part's Democrat, and 90% of the congressional races are uncompetitive in the general. Think about that. 90% of the races, it's going to be a Democrat or Republican emerging. And so there's no real need for them to do anything. The big push that the Forward Party is making is that we should switch to nonpartisan open primaries where anyone can vote for the person of any party. And then you would see people really actually take your agenda seriously, not because it's wedged in as interest number 18 in this two-party system where frankly no one cares, but you can build your own effort around it. And then if anyone can vote for anyone, then even if you have 5% who care about that, then whoever is running will say, hey, I guess I have to listen to you. Or when they're running for re-election. So this is the darkest part. I want you all to text. I don't know if you can text right now, but what is the national approval rating for US Congress right now?
He's not answering questions. He's stalling.
No, it's fine. It's 20%. And what is the re-election rate for individual members of Congress? It's 94%. Do you think that they have to listen to us if they have a 94% re-elect rate? Like, of course they don't. So this is the point, is that you have to make it so the system is genuinely competitive and representative. And that's the first mission of the Forward Party.
All right, thank you. I want to go to Daniel Morales. And also, by the way, if you want to, there's so many hands up. If you want to see a speaker view, you can click the top right of your screen and you can follow the speaker view. It helps you to see a little bit better if you want to do that. Daniel, you're up. Tell us where you're from, Daniel.
Hey, I'm in Columbia, South Carolina normally. I'm calling out of Redding, California at the moment. Andrew, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us today. My question is, so do you feel like you have learned from organizations like Braver Angels, as far as we've heard a couple of times people already mention, hey, how do you get people to work together that have these big differences in core principles and worldview? And just curious from your experience, how you've navigated that on the campaign trail and talking with people that share just some very different views.
Thank you, Daniel. I understand that Braver Angels started with what seems like family therapy for Americans. where you had like, whatever it was, 9 Democrats, 9 Republicans come together. And there are some best practices around getting people of different backgrounds to come together and listen. And I know that Braver Angels practices that all the time in this sort of gathering. We want to borrow all of the tools and techniques that we can. On a personal level, I think that, and this is not to say, because the Forward Party movement has to be like a very, very broad constellation, big tent of different types of Americans. But I think that I make something of an ambassador for this because I've always thought that all Americans are good. Maybe it's because, I'm the son of immigrants. And so anyone that's gone around saying like, hey, you should really dislike these Americans, I'm just like, why? You know, because they disagree with me on this or that. Like I was brought up thinking you're allowed to disagree with people. And so it's been like a really exciting mission for me, in part because I think it's core to who I am.
Great. I'm going to go to Claire Ashcraft. Claire, you can go ahead and start your video and ask your question, Claire.
Hi, I'm a Ford volunteer in Ohio, and I was curious. I've always been for third parties, but I was listening to a podcast earlier this week that kind of flipped my perspective, talking about how we might be a spoiler. And I was like, well, clearly you can be a Ford Democrat or Ford Republicans who wouldn't be a spoiler. But then I thought a little bit more about it, and I was like, well, we would be, because the incentives aren't aligned with being forward. So it would be, I feel like, akin to voting for you, Andrew, instead of like Joe Biden in the presidential election. And so I was wondering why we aren't making a strong case for the current Republicans and Democrats to adopt ranked choice voting and open primaries, rather than doing this third party thing that a lot of voters don't really seem to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, for volunteering and for your belief and support. In my ideal world, we would have Republicans and Democrats embracing nonpartisan open primaries and ranked choice voting so that anyone can vote for anyone. But you've seen what's happened, for example, in Nevada, which is controlled by Democrats. They've actually used ranked choice voting internally, but when it hit the ballot, they looked at it and said, hey, this is bad. And the reason why they're saying it's bad, there's no principled reason to say it's bad. So they made up some reason. So to your question, Claire, I would love to get Democrats and Republicans on board with these process changes. I just do not believe that they ever will get on board with these process changes because they're not in their interests. And so you need to do both things at once. You need to build a third party that rises up and actually supports candidates who are trying to do positive things. And at the same time, try and get rid of the spoiler effect as quickly as possible by saying, look, just change to your process to ranked choice voting, and then like no one spoils anything. But I've known enough about both parties to know that there's no way they would ever give up the keys to the kingdom without some kind of real force coming their way. They've had decades to do it. Even now, when it's presented to them, they won't do it. They'll fight it tooth and nail. So we have to go with the carrot and the stick, if you will. We have to go to them and say, hey, change your process that anyone can vote for anyone. And by the way, if you don't, we're going to build a wave and it's going to rise up and make it so that you have to support this or you'll lose your job at some point.
All right, I want to go to Annette Ritter.
Thank you, David. Andrew, thank you so much for being here. One of my big questions was, if by chance we actually managed to elect a third party or other party president, how would that affect the structure of our current political system?
Thank you, Annette. So succinct. You were listening to David's directions. So believe it or not, everyone, this has happened multiple times in American history. Abraham Lincoln was a third party president in 1860. He won with 39% of the vote in a 4-candidate race. The Republican Party was brand new at that time. And when he won, there was then a realignment of American politics. His running mate in 1864 was a Democrat. And so we're overdue for that kind of realignment. And the subtext of what Annette is asking, I just want to spell this all out for you, is that 58% of Americans don't want either Donald Trump or Joe Biden to be president. That's what the two-party system may end up presenting us. So if you can imagine a unity ticket coming out of the Forward Party, maybe there's someone who's kind of resembles a moderate Republican teamed up with someone who resembles a moderate Democrat, and imagine that ticket wins, which I genuinely think it could, because I think 35% of Americans plus would get behind that. And you don't need 51%, you just need to win pluralities and to win the states. Then if you can imagine that assuming office, then you would see a real shakeup, because there'd be a de facto third party that then would have people migrating into it from both current parties, just because they'd go to where the ability to govern is. And for people who think that this is impossible, I want to call your attention to a guy named Evan McMullen, who's running for the US Senate right now in Utah. So he's an independent. Utah's a red state, but the Democrats decided not to field a candidate in Utah. So it's just the independent and the Republican. And right now they're neck and neck. So there's a possibility that there's an independent senator, another independent senator in the US Senate starting in January. And if the Senate is deadlocked, you could have Evan be the new Joe Manchin, or he's sitting with Joe Manchin and they're sorting things out. So there's potential to have a third force in Washington as early as January of next year. But certainly, to Annette's question, after 2024, if you were to see something as dramatic as a third party presidential winner, then you would see that third party running things. And I'm sure dozens of members of Congress would be joining from both sides. I hear from members of Congress who are thinking about joining forward now, and that's before this hypothetical that Annette's laying out.
All right, so Andrew, I understand that you will have to leave at this point, but we appreciate.
I have a few more minutes. I'm just enjoying.
Andrew, really quick.
Because
okay, great. Oh, excuse me.
Grassroots.
Excuse me.
Your grassroots.
Sorry, David. I had to go ahead and mute everyone.
If this is my farewell, I appreciate the opportunity.
No, let's take two more questions. I'm going to go to Graham Bullock and then Carol Zervas. Graham, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, David, and thanks, Andrew, for joining us. I have a question. I'm here in Davidson, North Carolina, and I have a question for you about agenda setting. I'm curious how you set the agenda in this new party, which I think is very cool. In particular, how do you balance between sort of structural changes like ranked choice voting and more specific policy proposals like universal basic income, which I know is close to your heart and your supporters, and how do you personally, and then how you, as an organization, do you sort of try to think about that balance? It's something. I'm a professor at Davidson College. It's something I ask my students a lot in our American politics course. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Graham. So first, let me say straightforwardly, Andrew Yang is pro-universal basic income, but there are many, many members of the Forward Party who are not. And again, that's A-OK. We can agree on the fact that Washington is broken and we need real dramatic reform structurally. And then we can sort out what the heck to do after we fix our government and make it responsive. That's the big thing I've figured out. And I want you all to take this away, is that at this point, our beliefs as to what we should do if Washington was working are less relevant than us getting Washington working again. You know what I mean? Like getting Washington.
So now we're playing Kumbaya. People are
you're not going to
dying.
be able to get.
Sorry, Andrew, I had to mute.
No problem. I'm back. So to the second part of the question, how do you actually arrive at an agenda? One of the things we do is we look to see whether there's massive consensus among Americans around a particular issue. Let's say something like prescription drug prices being too high. I think that's like 76% of Americans agree that we should do something. So when consensus is that high, then we can just settle on doing something and making proposals that most of us would agree with. The other way that we help develop this agenda, Graham, is we're actually doing a national tour starting in September, and then people will be able to come together, culminating in a national convention next year. And then you can help us set our agenda, because we want to hear from Americans, like real Americans, what the heck we should do, as opposed to thinking that we know everything. So those are a couple of the ways that we're looking to build proposals around common sense, really, and what most Americans want for ourselves and our families.
All right, so Carol, you get the last word on this, and then we're gonna thank Andrew for coming and joining us tonight. Carol.
Okay, I'm from Ellicott City, Maryland. Andrew, you came close to what I've been thinking. The people who are currently in power can stay in power because they all agree on what's most important. It's money. How can you have a really successful party if you can't come to a conclusion on what is most important?
Thank you for the question. I'm actually part of an organization that's trying to get money out of politics by overturning Citizens United, because I think that money has overrun our two parties. I'm a numbers guy, and so the numbers are literally up to the billions in each party. And so a third party effort, in order to be successful, needs to gather together a lot of energy and resources to be able to make a dent. Because if you can imagine, if you visualize it, you have these two parties that are filled with hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars. And they each have their media organizations that are trying to squash or ignore opposition. So the goal is to get enough Americans of every alignment together to be able to make structural changes and then hash out what it is that we'd like to be able to do. We will be leading, to your question, Carol, with some very, very concrete proposals that most Americans can agree on around healthcare, education, economic empowerment, and poverty alleviation. We're going to be spending the next year trying to gather consensus around the proposals we should be leading with going into 23 and 24. But again, if you're arriving at this country right now where everyone's casting about for an answer, a new solution, there's never been a time like this. 50% of Americans now say they're independents, 62% say they want a third party. And I'm going to just, identify myself in a particular way. I'm very passionate about this country and its future. I'm a parent, I want to leave it in a state that I'll actually be proud of for my kids. But I'm now at a point where I think that my beliefs, as opposed to Bo's beliefs, are being used as tools to set us against each other more than anything else. And so in a way, this movement, and it's one reason I was so eager to talk to you all at Braver Angels, this movement is about rediscovering our shared identity as Americans, as human beings, as mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, who can just come up and say, look, let's come together. Let's stop letting these parties manipulate us and weaponize our beliefs against each other, and actually make it so that this system is going to respond to us, our way of life. I ran for president because America's not quality of life, but our life expectancy has declined for 3 of the last 4 years pre-COVID. Like, what kind of healthy industrial democracy allows that to happen? And if that does happen, it should be a 5-alarm fire on the front page of every newspaper saying Americans are dying earlier because our system is failing. But no one has ever, they bury that story. I tweeted something about.
And Andrew, if you could wrap it up in about.
Sure, yeah, I'll get lost in a minute. I sent something out about white people dying in rural communities, and I got attacked by the Democratic media as somehow that being like a statement that I was supposed to be ashamed of. It's like, are these not our fellow Americans? Like, what the heck is going on? So that's how I'd end it, Carol, is that there are so many Americans that understand that we need a different approach and are sick of fighting each other. We want to fight the system that's increasingly corrupt and making it hard for us to feel good about our futures. David, thank you all so much. Bo, thank you. Let's be in touch soon. I appreciate the heck out of you all, and let's come together.
Thank you,
you can come see me at andrewyang.com or forwardparty.com, and hopefully I'll see you on the road in the coming weeks.
All right.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks for joining us, Andrew. We're going to now go to questions and experiences. So some of you in the crowd are involved with third-party efforts. Some of you are helping to start third parties. Some of you might be deeply committed Republicans or Democrats and working within the parties, and you have that perspective to offer. We want to hear from you. And we also want to invite any questions for Bo or Jerry. While you're formulating your thoughts, Bo, I do want to, and Jerry, I want to ask you if you could kick us off for this part of it. Bo, let's start with you. What do you see as, if you had to pick one or two issues as the issues that could bring together a broad spectrum of strong conservatives and progressives and centrists together, what would be those one or two issues that you would focus on, Bo?
Wow, that's a great question. It seems like there's so much that divides us as a nation now, but like we've said in previous statements in this meeting, we're pitted against each other, and I think the majority of it. I wouldn't say the majority of Americans. I know I just got done saying that. That's not exactly what I should have said. But I think a lot of people are polarized on one or two things. Abortion and gun control are two of the biggest issues that most people are pitted against each other from. So I think outside of those two issues, you could just about focus on anything, and the majority of us are going to agree on it. Or at least that's the way I look at it. Honestly, I don't know any two particular things that we could sit down and start with, but those two, if you move those off the table, I believe the majority of us are going to agree on the majority of anything else that's left.
Mm-hmm. Jerry, what about you? If you had to pick one or two issues that you think could bring together a broad spectrum of voters, what would it be? Go ahead and unmute yourself, Jerry.
It has to be calling attention to the elites that own the two parties. That's core. Washington is working. It is. Andrew said it's not working. It's not designed to deliver for everyone. It is working. It's designed to deliver to the ultra rich, and that's what it does. And the rest of us be damned. So calling that out, exposing that kind of control, the money that goes to the two parties, the way they play these games, is absolutely essential. And when you start talking about how Washington doesn't work, then you're going to get Democrats and Republicans saying, but vote for me and it'll work, because you're losing sight of the fact that it is working for the people it's designed to work for, who are the people who are paying for it right now. And I agree with Bo completely that, we're being pitted against each other. And if you take aside a couple very hot button issues, the horrible health system in this country and the declining health of Americans, and Andrew said this, it should be front page story. Nobody wants to talk about it because the pharmaceutical industry, the hospital industry, the hospital is a for-profit industry now, one of the biggest in the country. 25 years ago, it was nonprofit, decentralized organization. Now it's centralized billion-dollar corporations, hedge funds that own the majority of our hospitals. It does not make the newspapers ever. Okay, so pulling the curtain aside, like in the Wizard of Oz, exposing little man back there, manipulating everything, that's got to be the primary issue, and getting people focused on that. And yes, that may sound like polarizing, but let's not be naive. Mm-hmm. There is those folks at the top pull no strings, pull no punches when it comes to keeping us divided and keeping the Democratic and Republican parties delivering for them. They pull no punches. And we need to figure out how to punch back.
All right, thank you, Jerry.
May I say something, David?
Go ahead, Bo. Yeah.
One of the, and I'm sorry, I'm rural West Virginia. I think a little slower sometimes, but I think one of the biggest topics for me when I ran, everything that I ran into and something I support, and I think the majority of the people that I have spoken to support, would be term limits across the board. We have a democratic republic. We all the time say our democracy. We have a democratic republic. We have three branches, and the president has a term limit on it. Nothing else does. We have three branches because we're supposed to have three equal parts: judicial, executive, legislative are all supposed to be equal parts. So one's not outweighing the other. So why do we have term limits for the president? Because that's too much power. I honestly, if I had won, I never saw any situation where I would have spent more than 2 terms in the U.S. Senate. I believe if you're in there for a decade plus, you should have plenty of time to be able to accomplish something and get out of the way. If you've been in Washington, D.C. for 40 years, you don't represent the people you work for or that you are supposed to represent. You're representing Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. I want to go to, and I know Jasmine Sherman, you're here because one of our leaders on We the People's Project team, Corey Zach, reached out to you on TikTok because you are involved in starting a third party. So Jasmine, did you want to share with us your own personal experience with this issue?
Sure. So I'm actually running for president of the United States with the Unicorn Party, which is a united leftist party. So where Andrew, and I know that everybody's saying Andrew started a party, on his website, it says it's a PAC, not a party. So is it a PAC or a party? Because we started an actual party, and there is a difference when you're campaigning on how you show up on ballots. But more importantly, at this time, we are trying to get younger voters to participate. Our party is located at unitedandfierce.com. We're made up of progressives and mostly a lot of younger people. We support universal health care, universal basic income, guaranteed housing, which means no more rent, no more mortgage, which is already happening in Germany. We support universal health care with 100% prescription coverage. We are currently actively every Saturday meeting with workers for direct action in attempt to unionize the workplace, because like Jerry has been saying, you have a real corrupt system. The problem is older generations don't know when to step aside and let younger people lead. So our party is going to provide term limits, an age cap, and make sure that people who were politicians cannot go and be lobbyists after they're done.
All right.
And my
Thank you.
website is fatsocialist.com.
All right. And thank you. And thank you for joining us and telling us a little bit about the Unicorn Party. All right. I want to go to Steve. Steve, do you have a question or an experience you'd like to share? Steve. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So I have also started a third party. It's called FIT, which stands for Facts, Integrity, Transparency. You can find it at www.fitparty.org. And I have in it mechanisms to address many of the things that have been expressed tonight. There are self-imposed term limits. There are local community advisory groups which serve to generate topics from communities and push them to the politicians. And those community advisory groups also are filters for lobbyist efforts that try to influence our politicians. And if those lobbyist efforts can't get through the community advisory groups, then they can't go to the politician. So there are a number of other mechanisms. There are probably about 8, 9 blogs that I've written, as well as the charter for the FIT Party is embedded in the website that you can read that. And I need people to help me form this as a 403B, to have a board of directors, to be able to open a bank account, get money, to do all kinds of things. So check that out, see if you like it. But one of the things I'll say is a number of the topics that I've heard here, the third parties need to have mechanisms embedded in them to address those topics. If the mechanisms don't exist, then those third parties are going to end up being like the other two parties are now. And Jerry, you have pretty much a one theme of the elitists, the wealthy, but we got to have mechanisms to dilute their influence or to minimize their influence. And I took a lot of time to think about all of the things that have corrupted the current politics and ways to solve those and embed those in the FIT Party. So I want to leave that with you. You guys can go check it out, but mechanisms that exist to make a third party very, not just attractive, but very functional.
All right, I want to go to Jim Palumbo. Jim, do you have a question or an experience you'd like to share? Go ahead. There you go, Jim. Let's see. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Jim. All right, while he's getting that, I'm going to go. Oh, there you go, Jim. You're live on We the People's Forum.
I want to, thanks. You may remember you and I had a conversation about some of these things that I'm just going to hit on right as quick as I can. To Jerry and to Bo and to Andrew and to everybody else, and Jerry in particular, it isn't the, I would submit that it isn't the elitists that need to be examined more. It's the nature of capitalism. And we do not talk about capitalism in the United States. Our ideological frame, our cultural instincts have been developed by our historical references to both democracy and capitalism. We're the most advanced capitalist system in the world. So until we come to grips with that and understand the realities that come from that kind of frame, we're going to continue to talk about a lot of things in the dark. And so I'm encouraging any third party that develops to make it a talking point to clarify our ideological character. And win, lose, or draw, this will help the public down the road understand who we are.
All right. Thank you. I want to see of the hands that are raised, just give me a physical wave of the hand if you have a question for Jerry or Bo. If you have a question for Jerry or Bo, yeah, go ahead, Richard. Unmute yourself.
I visited Skid Row a few years back, and there was a man sitting on the corner there in a wheelchair with no legs. And as far as I'm concerned, neither the Democrats or the Republicans give a damn about that man. And I would like to know what your plan is to help the homeless, because they're getting shoved farther and farther under the rug. And cities are being very mean to them nowadays. They're taking their belongings, they're throwing them in jail for being poor. Tennessee in particular has passed a law that you can't camp on public property, which is illegal, by the way, at the federal level, but they passed it anyway, and now they're arresting people for being homeless, because if you can't camp on private or public property, where else are you going to camp? So what are your plans to help the homeless? That's
all right. Jerry or Bo? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have no specific plans for that. It's, you know, I agree with Richard. It's what's going on to the homeless is horrible, but the fact of the matter is that, you know, we could be do-gooders on any one of those little problems forever and never change anything. That's why I said there's no quick fixes. There's no quick fixes. There has to be a structural change.
All right, Bo, did you have a perspective on that question?
Honestly, you know, like Jerry just said, you know, I don't have anything specific, and it's not been one of the issues I was faced with when I was running. But you know, having some empathy toward any one of us are one bad break away from being in that same situation. You know, and my views have always been a little different than most people's when it comes to foreign aid and the money that we send to other countries. This is one of the places where a lot of that money, we had the same situations we're sending money overseas to needs to be addressed at home. $60 billion going to the Ukraine and their war effort could help to house a lot of people who are destitute and in rough shape. So my first response is to deal with matters at home over matters on foreign soil before we, you know, take care of home first.
Okay, great. And I see when I asked if people had a question for Jerry or Bo, Tom Daly, you also had your hand up. So I go to you, Tom, and then Kitty, you'll be next. Tom Daly.
Yeah, there's a question for Jerry. Jerry, you said a lot of things that I wonder about and not necessarily disagree, but where do you get your data? What's the basis of the facts that you present?
It's all public. It's all publicly available.
I know, but where?
Well, I don't have citations for you. If you want me to forward you privately some citations, I can do that, because, you know, that's not how these forums work.
We could facilitate that, Jerry and Tom. We could put you two in touch with each other.
Great, thanks.
All right, will do. Kitty, do you have a question or experience you'd like to share? Go ahead.
I do have a question specifically for the Forward Party, or addressing to the Forward Party. A few months ago, I checked out the Forward Party's platform, if you will, online. And I haven't been back since then, so this is a little outdated. But there was no foreign affairs policy. And there was no, I don't think there was any policy or position on abortion. Now, Andrew Yang pretty much explained the business about abortion. It's too controversial, and he's trying to get together people's agreements in different areas. So, but from foreign affairs, so my question is there a party policy on what areas will have positions?
Okay, I see Ed McGlone, I think is Ed, if you're still here from the Forward Party, do you want to answer that?
Hey,
go for it.
sure. I'll give my best crack at it. I'm certainly not a Forward Party spokesperson or expert, just another kind of person like yourself. I'd imagine the best way to answer this question is to view it as kind of from the perspective Andrew put it. The way I interpret it is right now we're trying to unite Americans around broader principles about trying to fix problems, trying to fix the system that so we even allow unique problems, unique solutions to problems such as complex problems like foreign policy or abortion to even have a chance to succeed. Because right now we currently operate in a system where neither party's incentivized to actually come up with a solution to abortion where majority of Americans are happy or pleased, or to come up with a way for how which we spend on military and towards foreign wars that's going to be pleasing to most people. The system isn't designed to provide those problems. So I think the priority for the party, again, just speaking for myself personally and what I've observed, not on anything, necessarily from my work, but is to first unite Americans around that idea. Then I think at that point, there's going to be an idea that, from local communities, it's a grassroots, bottoms up kind of party. Local communities can decide what's works for them on a local level and decide policies within their state and local parties. And as we kind of move up to the national level, the problems come more broad. And once there's a national, for example, presidential candidate for Forward Party, I imagine, that person's going to have a position on things like foreign policy, because that's going to be something they're going to be dealing with as president. So I would say for now, the focus of the party is just trying to find a way to unite Americans around trying to solve institutional problems and organize locally. And then once presidential candidates and become, or US senators and people are going to be voting on these types of larger, broader problems like foreign policy, they'll have the opportunity to make their case and make their position in that way.
All right, thank you. I want to go to Stephen. Stephen P. I'll say. I don't know how to say your last name, Stephen. Do you have a question or experience you'd like to share?
Probably more experience, I guess. I kind of honestly forgot I had signed up for tonight's event, so I'm kind of glad I got the alert email for that. But because this afternoon I was actually researching the Freedom or the Forward Party online and looking into their information, so it's kind of an ironic turn of events to get to see Andrew Yang. So that was a good surprise. I'm actually in Nebraska, and I just recently this weekend actually was elected to be on basically the board or one of the higher ups within the Nebraska Republican Party. I've been involved for quite a while. Our county chair, the Republican Party here in our local county, and all that. But shortly after I was elected into that position, we actually had a coup in the Nebraska Republican Party that was took over basically the Republican Party in Nebraska. So completely experience. So my mind has just been kind of traveling all over the place. I've always been a big believer in generality of trying to have more voices and listen to people across the aisles and have that understanding of multiple parties and that, I guess, that theory. One of the proposals I was going to be working on once I was on the board actually was, and I proposed it this weekend, was to add ranked choice voting within the Republican Party in Nebraska, and to do some other stuff with that, and to try to work within the current Republican system to try to incorporate more beliefs and different varieties of those that are struggling to be a Republican, so to speak, in a very red state. So that was kind of there, but then after this coup, I have no idea what the future is going to hold, and so it kind of got me thinking of seeing what else is out there and what's been going on. So yeah, it's very appreciative to have this conversation, a very timely conversation for me personally.
So at this point, Stephen, you as a Republican are interested in the idea of a third party, possibly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a third party, or like you said, even third or fourth, I think multiple parties is a good solution. I think in a theoretical realm, what that does is, as politicians, right now we're in a system where if you want to run for office, which I have, you have to pick Republican or Democrat, whichever closely aligns with your beliefs, even though it may not come close. And then you kind of have to puppet what those beliefs are of that party to get a chance to get elected. And at the same time, voters have that same mentality of, I don't necessarily agree with what either of these candidates are saying, but I have to pick whichever one closely aligns, and I don't really agree. So I think having multiple parties opens up multiple candidates to be able to actually share their true beliefs rather than just trying to puppet what a party says you need to. So I think having that ability, whether I agree with what that party is, it gives people that ability to better align with the candidates that are running. And I think at the end of the day, that's where ranked choice voting is a huge tool, because it gives the choice back to the people, rather than that argument that I hear all the time of, well, I have to vote for the lesser of two evil or I'm throwing my vote away. I think if you have that ranked choice voting at the different levels, it gives that ability back to the people to say, this is my primary choice I want. Then my second choice can go to that lesser of two evils. If I don't get my primary choice, then at least, that I don't want to vote for that third person or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Stephen P, for sharing your experience. That is timely. And I'd like to note that just as you said coup, one of your children was trying to make a coup and I think take the microphone or something.
Yeah. She's been quiet the whole time, and then right as I start talking, she starts walking in the room. So.
Well, as the father of 5 children, I can empathize. Ariel, let's go to you. Do you have a question or experience you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you. I have an experience that I'd like to share. I've been part of the Yang Gang, like the original, ever since his presidential campaign. And if there's anyone in Forward Party listening to this, I'm directing it to you. There seems to be a cool kids club in the Yang Gang and in Forward Party that there's no mechanism for the grassroots to get Andrew's ear if we have an idea, if we have like something to say. And my thing that I would like directly to say to Andrew, if he was still here, but he's not, is that he's too happy-go-lucky. I think that Trump got a lot of votes because he could be a little bit like, I came from the Trump side. He could call out BS when he needed to call out BS. And I'm not saying I supported it anymore. That's what I've seen. But with this kind of attitude that he's like, oh, it's okay, we'll do this. It has to be more serious because there are people suffering. There are people going through BS. It has to get through brass tacks. And Andrew, instead of interviewing people who are like just famous already, give more attention to your grassroots. Give more attention to the people who supported you in the first place. And not just when I text Zach, and Zach Grauman is like his campaign manager, I gave him like a whole essay of my ideas. And he just said, hi, how are you? And he never responded to me. We're not here for the hi, how are you stuff. We're here for the brass tacks. So that's what I'd like to say. And if you could get me in contact with one of the higher ups, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Ariel, thank you for your comment. Ariel, follow-up question, did you go from voting for Trump to being involved in the Forward Party?
Who cares?
Well, here's the thing. Thing, right? Okay, let me explain myself. The reason why is because Trump said, I thought that Trump was a businessman and he could do better with our economy. But then when Andrew Yang said that it's because of automation and everything like that, then I said, okay, well, his argument seems to make sense. But what I've noticed through and through with Andrew is that he has trouble calling people out on their BS. And the first time he was on the debate stage, he never said, there are Americans suffering and like going through hell right now, and you people just want to talk crap about Trump. What about addressing these things? But he was like, you can talk over me, that's okay. okay, okay. And it was like, you're not a fighter for us. You're not.
Okay.
You're just
Hey,
like,
this is off the
okay,
subject,
okay.
man.
You know,
Well, thank you, Ariel. Thank you for sharing your perspective. So,
my pleasure.
by the
Thank
way, I
you.
want to note that somebody has noted that I love that Seth Chalmer is allowing his daughter to be with him. Could you let Seth know that one other person thinks that is great? So, Seth, I'm just letting you know.
You just went to bed, but thank you.
Wonderful. All right, now we're going to go to action ideas. We want to start thinking about what are some, and we've started getting into this, but the question is, we're going to start with the speakers and then ask everyone else to share. So if you could, unless you have an action idea that you want to share, if you could unraise your hand, unless you have an action idea. The question is, what is an action idea or a solution that you would support to address the challenge that most Americans believe that our political parties are not representing the American people well? So what is an action or a solution that you would support to address the challenge that most Americans believe that our political parties are not representing the American people well? Annette, I want to go to you right now because you're going to talk for people who may not be aware about Braver Angels, a little bit about Braver Angels. Annette, who came up with this idea for this forum, presented it to We the People's Project team, and said, oh, well, we should get in touch with Andrew Yang as well. So Annette, over to you.
Okay, I'm not real clear on whether I'm supposed to be talking about Braver Angels or
Braver Angels. Braver
Okay.
Angels.
Okay. Braver Angels appealed to me. First off, I was invited to do a debate when I was still in college, and I was impressed with the way that the moderators kept people from fighting in a debate. I'd always thought of debates as being this big argument that people just said, okay, I'm right, you're wrong, and went back and forth, and that was it. But I was really impressed with the fact that this was different. This was people having different opinions and yet being able to state it and state it well, and another person state their opinion and have good valid arguments, yes, but have it presented in a way that it was easy to listen to. I've often thought that if Braver Angels handled the debate, the presidential debate between Trump and anybody, that it would have come across a lot more watchable if we'd had it in a Braver Angel style. And since then, I looked up what Braver Angels was about. I loved the name, and I thought, man, after college, I've got to get involved in something. So, if you have a passion that you feel like you're not being heard, you're an American, you've got opinions, but you feel like you really don't fit, you can't say what you really feel. Braver Angels allows you to state your mind or to listen to people with perhaps like ideas or unlike ideas. And it's okay to be that way. And you're respected, you're honored, we're happy to have the different voices, because that, after all, is what makes America. And Braver Angels, to me, represents the best of America, because it's not just a red or blue thing. I am strictly and unapologetically unaffiliated. And that's because I don't feel like I could go on either side. So whether you're red, blue, or unaffiliated like myself, this is a place where you can listen, you can talk, you can share ideas, and you can be an American unapologetically. So I encourage you to check it out even more, the forums, the debates, whatever it is that interests you. If it has anything to do with an American issue, you will find it here someplace. So thank you.
And Apple has put in the chat, if you're not a member, how you can become a member, braverangels.org/join. So, and by the way, if you are a member, you're going to be invited to the next Braver Angels member meeting on July 26th, 8 p.m. And We the People's Project will be the focus of that. So you'll get to hear more about what we've been up to at We the People's Project. All right, action ideas. Let's go to you first. Alan, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I think I have an action item, but I don't know. The first thing is that I sent David a spreadsheet that's from my personal website. And basically, in terms of this red and blue and black and white and all kinds of other stuff, I'm an atheist and a free market capitalist, self-identified. That's not a pronoun. Those are beliefs. If any of you would like to tell me which political party today I could wholeheartedly support, you're a much better person than I am. Now, in terms of action items, I've seen a lot recently about addressing the homeless situation by building housing. I've read several reports, I think it were in Reason magazine, which probably few of you subscribe, that it's really the shelters that are being shut down, and that's the shelters that the homeless need, because that's how they get back on their feet. They can't afford housing. So housing is a lousy solution for homeless.
Alan, I do want to orient you to the question on the table, which is, what is an action or solution that you would support to address the fact that most Americans don't feel that the two-party system is representing them well?
Okay, let me address that directly. And it goes back,
take about 30 seconds, and then we're going to go to the next person.
Got it. That goes right back to something that Andrew started with. When Trump came down the escalator, I looked at that and I said, hey, he could be elected. Nobody agreed with me. They said, why? I said, well, the approval rating of Congress has struggled to be within 7 to 15%, yet the re-election rate has been in the mid to high 90s. That says the problem is the electorate, not Congress. You're complaining about people, yet you're re-electing them. I would try to do something to study that, understand it, and figure out why people do what on the face of it is a really stupid reaction.
All right, let's get some action items on the table here. And by the way, I want to hear from a politically diverse group of people on this too, so I'm going to be looking for that. Carolyn, what you got?
You want politically diverse? You've got her.
Okay, what's your action idea?
Well, my action idea is that we actually talk about the country's largest third party. I was surprised when I saw, are we ready for a third party? I was surprised to see that none of the speakers were actually going to talk about a third party, which has been on the ballot in every state in the country since the year 2000. I'm a member of the Libertarian Party. I'm very active in the Libertarian Party. Hi, Susan. Yes, and it's frequently said that most people are libertarians, they just don't know it. And I'm surprised that we haven't been talking about that for most of the last, hour and a half? We're almost done. And only now are we talking about a viable third-party solution. Andrew Yang wants to have a third party, but he's not on the ballot anywhere. We are on the ballot in 50 states. The Libertarian Party represents people who are fiscally conservative and socially liberal. That is most of us. Most of us don't want to control other people. Most of us don't want to have government controlling us. The reason that third parties aren't more successful is mostly because of the winner-take-all way that we deal with elections. That's got to change. We could look with ranked choice voting, we could do star voting, but when we have winner-take-all, first person across the finish line, that's not going to work anymore. The way we have ballot access is just screwed. The way the debates are run.
And take 15 more seconds, Carolyn.
Where the political parties own the political debates, they don't let in the third parties. And that makes the electorate don't know about the other candidates.
All right. By the way, Carolyn, you are mentioning the Libertarian Party. I know they're not one and the same thing, but Braver Angels and Andrew Yang are both going to be at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, Nevada next week. So if you're there, stop by the Braver Angels booth, listen to Andrew Yang while you're there.
I won't be there, but Spike Cohen is on an airplane right now on his way to Freedom Fest. He
All
was
right.
their vice presidential candidate, and he is a fantastic speaker.
Excellent. All right, Seth, how about you? And tell us where you're coming from politically on this.
Sure. Well, for political diversity purposes, this is good because I'm almost opposite to the Libertarian Party. I'm fiscally left-wing and socially, I'm not going to say socially right-wing, but I would say socially center-right. So there's really no room for me. I would affiliate closest to the American Solidarity Party, but I want to talk about something structural and an action item, which is multi-member districts for the House of Representatives with proportional representation. This is the biggest thing we could do to give everyone a voice. Right now, as Carolyn was saying at the end of her answer about the first past the post system, right now, every House election, Senate elections too, but that's harder to fix. Every House election is a contest over which voters we will disenfranchise. And in a close election, which everyone holds up as like the good outcome is that it be a close competitive election, it's still a contest over this year in Georgia, will we disenfranchise the Republicans or the Democrats? And right now, if you're a Republican in Manhattan, you simply will never have a voice in Congress. If you're a Democrat in Nebraska, you will never have a voice in Congress. But it shouldn't be that way. Everybody should be at the table. We should have multi-member districts with proportional representation so that if 30%, if 20% of America are Democrats and 20% are Republicans, and there's a 15% who are libertarians, and there are Green parties, and there's a MAGA party, and there's the American Solidarity Party, and there's a whole bunch of people, they should all be there. We should have to talk to each other. And I'll just end by saying that there's been a lot of talk about like what we all have in common and bringing us all together. But I think the best way to bring us together for solutions is actually to embrace the fact that we are not all the same in our views. And just like Braver Angels does, we have to give everyone a voice instead of having disenfranchising contests.
All right, thank you. I want to see if we have time for two more comments. I want to see if I'm going to call on Linda, who I know is the red co-chair of an alliance in Braver Angels. I want to see if there is somebody who sees themselves as a Democrat who wants to address this. Yeah, go ahead, Catherine. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm not very involved in politics, but I recently went to a county Democratic precinct meeting for the first time, and it really got me thinking about having Braver Angels Red Blue workshops with the Democrats running hyper locally and the Republicans running hyper locally and the Libertarians and anybody else who wants to participate, because that is what's going to get people like me and many people I know involved and caring about character and about what people have to say, because I think policies really don't matter very much. We see over and over again, people talk about policies and then nothing happens when they get there because of the way the system is set up. So I think, Braver Angels Red Blue workshops have had such an impact on me. It's amazing how you come away from those workshops. So to have politicians willing and actually engaging in those workshops as a form of, quote, debate, I think would be a really great idea.
All right, thank you. For the last word on this, I'm gonna go to you, Linda.
Hi, sorry, I can't, my video is not working right, so I apologize. But a couple of things. I think that there is a lot more commonality underneath than
We're getting some noise. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, Linda.
Sorry, I had to mute everyone, Linda.
Okay, let's try this. Linda, go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll see if it works this time. There was just some noise coming from you.
I heard the noise too.
Okay.
I think there's a lot more commonality underneath than we think. So let's take the abortion issue, right? You think that's a very polarizing issue, but underneath, I think we can all agree to work on minimizing unwanted pregnancy. And if we could focus on that, I believe that whether you are very conservative, very liberal, that might be an area where the majority of people could focus. Same thing with gun control or gun issues, that if we focused on safety, I think that both sides, we might be able to get some traction there. So I really think there might be a lot more commonality across than I think that both parties, the two-party system, it feeds on polarization and on angst and on getting people riled up against the other side. And you know,
okay.
Yeah, I'd like not to do that.
All right.
Also, the economy is another thing. Nobody's ever really talked about that tonight, and I wish that there had been more about the economy.
All right. Thank you, Linda. Okay, we're going to hear from Jerry and Bo in closing here. Before I go to them, I want to invite Wilkinson to just say, some of you may be hearing about We the People's Project, which puts on this We the People's Forum for the first time. So Wilk, just tell us briefly what we're about at We the People's Project, and for people that might be interested in learning more.
Thanks, David. Yeah, and thanks to everybody who chose to show up tonight and all the impassioned speakers we've had. It's really great. Like David said in the beginning of our conversation, the We the People's Project is really about giving people who are often talked about but seldom heard from a place at the podium. It's the We the People's Project is literally, like David said, excuse me, a place where everyone from all races, classes, places, and politics can get together and have a civil conversation about everyday topics. And all too often in our country today, that just does not happen. You know, politicians will play a lot of lip service to certain groups that they pull off a shelf when they need them. And what we have here is an organization in Braver Angels. What we have is an organization that is just absolutely incredible in terms of getting people together of differing opinions to have just, you know, civil conversations. So depolarization is the goal of Braver Angels. Depolarization amongst everyday people who are very seldom are often not heard from. So the big thing with the We the People's Project, and what kind of gives it a little bit of a different niche than Braver Angels, the Braver Angels organization is made up of, as a whole, a lot more people with, say, 4-year degrees or even graduate degrees than what our nation represents. More than 65% of our nation is made up of people that do not have a 4-year degree. The We the People's Project is more of a working class, we the people, everyday American, people that are out there grinding every day, day in and day out. Like Bo mentioned earlier in the conversation, you know, just people that are out there working, living paycheck to paycheck, dealing with everyday issues that most politicians probably never have to deal with. And we give them a voice, and that voice is important. It's very important, and it's not only important to just say it, but it's also important to be heard. And here at the We the People's Project with Braver Angels, you get an opportunity to be heard.
Well said. And we are here every second Monday of the month for We the People's Forum. So join us in August, where we're going to have a forum on the issue of abortion, hearing from everyday Americans who've been affected by abortion. I want to go to Bo and then Jerry to close us out. And Bo and Jerry, I want to ask you both to share your action ideas as we close here about what you would like to see happen in terms of addressing the challenge that most Americans don't feel represented by the two-party system. And also tell us, so share us with your action idea and also what you're taking away with you from this conversation tonight. Bo, I'm going to go to you, and then Jerry. Oh,
well, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity this evening. Thank you to Braver Angels for what you do. Thank you for We the People's Forum. Everything that you guys are doing is exactly why I ran, why I did what I did, because I didn't feel like I was heard, didn't feel like I was represented. And you guys give a platform for that, and I'm grateful for it. As far as action ideas, honestly, from the time I started running for Senate, even till now, I try to sit back and listen to as many people as possible, find out what is most concerning to each individual. I don't have actual action ideas on this topic. I honestly wanted to learn more about what you guys have to say and what most people are looking forward in, what most people are looking for in the people who represent them. So trying to get ideas is one of the reasons why I wanted to be a part of this forum, to see exactly what everyone else is looking for, and then try to implement ways that I can help that process along in some way, shape, or form where I am.
Excellent. And Bo, let me say too that Braver Angels, we'd be really honored to have you involved in more Braver Angels events and activities and stuff. So let's stay in touch. We're just thrilled that you're here tonight. And I think there's a lot of resonance between what you're about and what Braver Angels is about. So hope to see you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And Jerry, I'll say the same of you, but you're already a part of the We the People's Project leadership team. So, but I mean that about you too, Jerry. Go for it, Jerry.
And I actually remembered to unmute myself before I spoke. That's a first. The action item is a really challenging question. I've been thinking about that, through much of the conversation, because, people have a lot of great ideas, but I think, the way workers historically have shown their power is by folding their arms and not working. So that the people who are making money off of their work suddenly realize who they actually depend on. And I think we have to do that with regard to the current political debate. Before we can launch a new party, we have to really say, looking back over all the times that we voted and all the times that we're looking at, voted for the lesser of two evils, which people talked about a couple times on here. We need to send a big message to the Republicans and Democrats by not voting for either of them and sitting it out. Let the election, last time we had the highest turnout in history, almost the highest turnout in history in the presidential election, which to me was ironic because of how many people think the system was broken, but yet they hoped that this broken system was still going to correct itself if they voted for the right person. And I think a lot of people have learned that that doesn't work. So the best way to challenge the credibility of the two parties is to sit it out, not vote. And it's people don't think that's a good idea. People think that that's a concession of an admission of powerlessness. But until we can clear our minds and start thinking about what kind of program that we have going forward, and I think Brave Angels is very important in helping us have that discussion, until we know what we want to do and can unite on it, we shouldn't just run off. There are no quick fixes, I said at the beginning. And, they're not going to do us any worse if we sit it out, and we're going to look around at each other and say, darn, there's an awful lot of people who agree with me that this system is broken. Now let's sit down and talk about how to fix it.
All right. There is in the chat box, there was a feedback form that we want to ask you to copy and paste that into your browser. So before you leave here tonight, copy and paste the feedback form link and share with us your feedback about tonight and about ideas and issues for future forums. So and we'll be in touch by email as well about that link, so you can get it that way as well. So with that said, that is it for tonight, everyone. We'll see you here next month for We the People's Forum. Good night to you too, Roscoe. Good night, everyone. And let's go out there and build a house united.